Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, Alex and I are tackling a tricky but super rewarding skill, mastering English listening comprehension, specifically at the intermediate level, using podcasts.
That's right, Mike. We're talking about how to really understand spoken English, not just hear the words. I remember struggling with this myself when I was first learning.
Exactly. Many learners get stuck in the intermediate phase, feeling like they understand written English well but struggle when listening, especially to podcasts with natural, fast-paced conversations. So, what's the solution?
Well, first things first. Finding the right podcast is crucial. You don't want something too easy, but you definitely don't want something so advanced that you're completely lost. Right?
Absolutely. The sweet spot is finding something slightly above your current level. It should challenge you, but not overwhelm you. Think of it like lifting weights. You want a challenge, but not so much that you injure yourself. What are some good podcast genres to start with at the intermediate level? Alex?
I found podcasts about current events, but specifically designed for English learners. Really helpful. News in Slow English is a classic. They speak clearly, explain difficult vocabulary, and cover interesting topics. The key is to find something that interests you. If you're bored, you won't stick with it.
Great point about interest. Another option is podcasts related to hobbies or passions. If you're into cooking, listen to a cooking podcast in English. The context will help you understand even if some of the vocabulary is new. But how do you actively listen, rather than just passively letting the words wash over you?
Active listening. This is where the magic happens. Don't just put on a podcast and do the dishes. You need to be engaged. I like to listen in short bursts, maybe 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and really focus. Pause when you hear a word or phrase you don't understand.
And what do you do when you pause, Alex? Do you immediately reach for a dictionary?
Not necessarily. First, I try to guess the meaning from the context. What's the speaker talking about? What's the general situation? Often, you can get a pretty good idea without looking anything up. But how about you, Mike? Any special tips you use?
I'm a big fan of transcripts. Many podcasts provide transcripts, which are written versions of the audio. After listening once or twice, I read the transcript while listening again. This helps me connect the sounds to the written words and identify any gaps in my understanding. Then I look up the unknown words.
Oh, that's a great tip. I wish I had known that when I was learning. Speaking of vocabulary, what's your strategy for remembering new words you encounter in podcasts? Just writing them down isn't always enough, right?
Exactly. Rote memorization rarely works for me. I try to use new words in sentences, either written or spoken. The more I use a word, the more likely I am to remember it. I also like to create flashcards with example sentences. And a tool that helped me was Anki, which uses spaced repetition.
I've heard of Anki. I should give that a try. I tend to write new words in a notebook, along with the context in which I heard them. Then, a few days later, I review the notebook and try to recall the meanings without looking at my notes. It's like a little vocabulary quiz for myself.
That's a smart system. Now, let's talk about a common challenge. Understanding different accents. English speakers have such a wide variety of accents. It can be really confusing.
Tell me about it. I remember the first time I heard a thick Scottish accent. I understood almost nothing. What's the best way to train your ear to different accents? Mike.
Exposure. 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 The more you listen to different accents, the better you'll become at understanding them. Seek out podcasts with speakers from different regions. The BBC has a wide range of podcasts with British accents. For example, also, watching movies and TV shows with subtitles can help.
That makes sense. I found that listening to interviews with people from different countries also helped a lot. Now, what about the speed of speech? Some people speak so fast that it's hard to keep up, even if you understand all the individual words.
That's a tough one. Some podcast apps allow you to slow down the playback speed. This can be really helpful when you're first starting out. You can gradually increase the speed as your comprehension improves. But how about understanding idioms or cultural references?
Idioms are the bane of my existence. I think the best approach is to keep a list of idioms you encounter and look them up later. Also, try to pay attention to the context in which they're used. As for cultural references, sometimes you just have to accept that you won't understand everything. That's part of the learning process.
True. It's impossible to understand every single cultural reference, especially when they're very specific to a particular region or group. But understanding common idioms and cultural references can really enhance your comprehension and make you feel more connected to the language.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about putting this into practice. What are some real-world scenarios where good listening comprehension is essential?
Well, think about traveling to an English-speaking country. Being able to understand directions, order food, or have conversations with locals is crucial. Or in a professional setting, attending meetings, giving presentations, or collaborating with colleagues all require strong listening skills.
Exactly. I remember once I was in a meeting where everyone was speaking really fast and using a lot of jargon. I felt completely lost until I started actively listening and asking clarifying questions. It made a huge difference.
Asking clarifying questions is a great tip. Don't be afraid to ask someone to repeat something or explain a word or phrase you don't understand. It's much better to ask than to pretend you understand and miss important information. What are some common mistakes that intermediate learners make when trying to improve their listening skills?
I think one common mistake is trying to understand every single word. It's okay to miss some words. Focus on the overall meaning and try to infer the meaning of unfamiliar words from the context. Also, don't be afraid to re-listen to sections you didn't understand the first time.
Another mistake is not being patient enough. Improving your listening skills takes time and effort. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results immediately. Keep practicing consistently, and you will eventually see progress. And don't compare yourself to others.
That's so true, Mike. Everybody learns at their own pace. So, we've talked about choosing the right podcasts, active listening techniques, vocabulary building, overcoming challenges, and real-world application. What's your number one piece of advice for intermediate learners who want to improve their listening skills using podcasts?
My number one piece of advice is to be consistent. Set aside a specific time each day or week to listen to podcasts. Even if it's just for 15 to 20 minutes. The key is to make it a habit. And most importantly, choose podcasts that you enjoy listening to.
I totally agree. Consistency is key. My top tip is to make it fun. Listen to podcasts about topics that genuinely interest you. And don't be afraid to experiment with different genres and speakers until you find what works best for you. Thanks for sharing your great advice, Mike.
My pleasure, Alex. Now, let's answer a few common questions that we often get from our viewers about English listening. Practice with podcasts.
Great idea. Okay, here's a common one. How do I know if a podcast is the right level for me? Quote.
That's a good question. I think a good rule of thumb is that you should understand at least 70 to 80% of what's being said. If you're understanding less than that, it's probably too difficult. Also, look for podcasts that provide transcripts or other learning resources.
Another common question is, how can I improve my listening skills if I don't have much time? Quote,
even short bursts of listening can be effective. Try listening to a podcast while you're commuting, exercising, or doing chores. The key is to make the most of the time you have. You can also try listening to shorter podcasts or segments of longer podcasts.
One last question. What if I get bored or discouraged when listening to podcasts? Quote,
it's normal to feel bored or discouraged sometimes. If that happens, try switching to a different podcast or taking a break. Remember, the goal is to make learning fun and enjoyable. Don't force yourself to listen if you're not feeling it.
Excellent advice, Mike. So, to recap, we've covered a lot of ground today about mastering English listening comprehension at the intermediate level using podcasts. We talked about choosing the right podcasts, active listening techniques, vocabulary building, overcoming challenges, and real-world application.
And we answered some common questions from our viewers. Remember, improving your listening skills takes time and effort, but it's definitely achievable with consistent practice and the right strategies. What are you planning to listen to next, Alex?
I'm going to check out that new history podcast I heard about. Thanks for joining me today, Mike. It was great chatting with you about this important topic.
My pleasure, Alex. And thank you to all of our viewers for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below telling us what your favorite English learning podcast is. Also, let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. See you next time.
And stay tuned for our next video, where we'll be discussing advanced strategies for improving your English speaking skills. Bye for now.